Hello, everybody. I'm Evan, creator of Mr. Incredible Becoming Uncanny Metal Bands, a video that kind of blew up recently, or somewhat recently. But I'm here to talk about that video and the video I made as a follow-up to it. First of all, I'm going to talk about the first video because that video was pretty bad. Like, the way I ranked the bands in the video was just not good, and I got a lot of shit for that in the comments, which is really understandable. I think the one that they saw and they were like, "What? How do you even think that?" Was ranking Disturbed as being like darker than Slayer, which it isn't. It's just not. And at the time of me making that video, it had been ages since I had listened to anything from Disturbed. And so I just sort of misremembered their music as being darker. I mean, what can I say? It's my mistake. Fucked up on that one. I feel like there was one controversial ranking in that video that was defensible, and that's putting Cattle Decapitation so low, because I had a lot of people saying, like, oh, their music, there's nothing dark about that. It's completely canny. And I kind of get where you're coming from if you compare it to a lot of other metal. But there was one particular song in the back of my mind for why my Cattle Decapitation was ranked so low, and that's the song Testicular Manslaughter, just for this opening bit here. For those of you who don't know what you just heard a man have his head cut off. You heard someone being fucking decapitated, beheaded. Yeah, not disturbing at all. Nope, not one bit. Anyway, that's enough of that. Enough on that. I just feel like I should say there were some bad rankings in that video, and there were some ones that I feel were a little more defensible. But my second video was much better, because I had listened to a lot of the bands that people had suggested to me, as well as some bands I hadn't listened to in a while. It's in the gap between when I made the first video and when I made the second one was when I started getting into black metal, so that's a huge contributing factor as to why my second video is so much better. But what you guys are probably all here for was the last band in my second video, because at the very bottom, below everything else, according to that video, the most disturbing band was a band called Zlaughter Crucifukkxion. Now, the interesting thing about Zlaughter Crucifukkxion is that, like many of you have probably guessed by now, it's not real. I made it up. Now I know that sounds bad, but before you click off the video... Anyway, so I came up with Zlaughter Crucifukkxion because I thought it would be funny. And to my credit, it was. I initially had this idea based on, born from two thoughts. These two thoughts were, one of the first comments I got on the first video. And I don't want to call anyone out with this, but one of the first comments I got on the first video was I know all of these bands. And it's I can believe that, but I also kind of can't. I guess the main catch on that is, Scythelord. Scythelord has so few listeners, you kind of have to be, a Joel fan in order to be a Scythelord fan. And so, I had this funny idea in the back of my head that was what if I made another video and I included a band that didn't exist, and I got comments saying I know all these bands. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get any comments like that on my second video. I kind of wish I had. If I had gotten any comments like that, then I would have said something sooner. I would have... This video wouldn't have been made. If I had gotten a comment saying I know all these bands, I would have just replied with, no you don't, because the last band isn't real. But, the other funny part was, the other thing that got me thinking was, a lot of the bands that people suggested, they were just like sounded so random to me. I'm just like, wouldn't it be funny if one of these was not real? And so I shared this idea with my brother as well as a couple of my friends, and they all thought it was pretty funny. So I just went and knew the photo editor I use for all my YouTube thumbnails, and I like also downloaded some random like font, and I just made the logo, and I put it in the video. Now, the last thing I have to address with that before I get off into my nonsensical ramblings, is what I'm going to do with this idea. Because I heard, a couple of people saying like, or, a couple of people like, they certainly hoped that this band was real. Like, I'm probably letting a couple of people down by saying that it isn't. And as well as like the people who are like, I got one comment saying like, this might be like, someone saying that this might be my band. I mean, it technically is because I came up with it, but it's also not because it's not real. But the thing about Zlaughter Crucifukkxion is that even though it's not my band, it could be yours. That's right. Anyone who's looking to start a metal band, use the name in the logo. I don't give a shit. In fact, I'll put like a Google Drive link to the like original, like full quality version of the logo for anyone who wants it. Because I got the main thing that got me thinking of like having other people make this band a real thing was the comments that are saying, that's a really cool band name, and it's like, I mean, that wasn't quite my intention. I mean, I guess my intention was for the band name to sound cool, but it was also for it to sound like comically edgy, which like at the time Zlaughter Crucifukkxion was one of the edgiest things I could come up with that wasn't like the name of a Lucifer Valentine movie. Yeah, and I guess that's where I'm getting off in my nonsensical ramblings, because when speaking of things that are like ridiculously edgy, one of the first things that I did with the like bands that people were suggesting me is I was looking at like, okay, what bands are people suggesting the most? And like the 2 or 3 most common ones that popped up were from the black metal crowd, Abruptum and Emit, which are hands down the darkest out there. Not counting history or lyrics, Abruptum and Emit, that's it. That is the bottom. Nothing gets darker than that in terms of sound. I mean, like Emit, for example, it sounds like hell. It sounds like someone lowered a microphone directly into the pits of hell. And I love it. But one of the first things I looked into were like, these 3 bands in particular. From the black metal crowd, you had from the black metal crowd, you had Abruptum and Emit. And from the death metal crowd, you had Devourment. Now, one of the first one I listened to was Devourment. And the first thing I listened to from Devourment was Baby Killer. And I read the lyrics, and I'm like, is this supposed to be disturbing? Because it is. But it's so disgusting, and tries so hard to be disgusting, that I can't help but laugh a little. I mean, maybe that's just, like, putting aside my... Oh, God, that was probably an awful sounding pop. But putting aside my absurdist sense of humor, most people would probably find this band to be one of the most fucked up things ever. And I get that. I get that. But for me, I can't take it too seriously. I'm sorry to any, like, Devourment fans. I just can't take it too seriously. I mean, I put it down there, like, way towards the bottom, just for the fans, because it is disturbing music, but... Yeah, nah, man. Nah. The other big one was like a comment that sort of bothered me, because it's like, ouch, like, oof, that hurts. Was the one that's like, whoever made this is probably just sensitive to metal in general. That one hurt. Not gonna lie, that one hurt. I mean, I guess I was less of a metalhead than I thought when I made that video, and I'm much more of one now. I think at the time of that video is like before I started listening to anything black metal, and, you know, by extension war metal. But, you know, like now it's like, I mean, my tastes have been broadened quite a bit. In terms of just metal in general, I like, on the less extreme side, I like industrial metal, progressive metal, like new wave of British heavy metal, traditional heavy metal. And on the more extreme side, I mean, I really like thrash metal, some death metal, mainly like technical death metal, some black metal. I mean, there's some black metal I don't like, but the good black metal is like some of the best metal out there, just period. And war metal. There was a comment. There was like, once you get into depressive suicidal black metal and war metal, it just scratches a certain itch that nothing else can. I don't really feel that way about DSBM, but I really feel that way about war metal. Okay, there's just something about war metal that just hits different. And then, of course, I mean, there's the, like, sort of subgenres that are fusions of other subgenres. I mean, I really forgot to talk about grindcore there, but, you know, I really got to bring up really like grindcore. In terms of, like, fusions of other subgenres, death grind is cool. I mean, surprising no one, I'm really into death thrash. You know, no way. Or thrash death, or whatever the fuck. I don't remember the order. But, you know, I mean, who knew? Who had any idea that the guy with the Scythe Lord shirt would like death thrash? But, yeah, I guess main takeaway from this video is I fucked up on that first video. It was bad. Zlaughter Crucifukkxion isn't real. It was a funny joke, but it can be real. You can make it real if you want. Use my idea. I mean, I would hope that only one group of people does it, so there isn't like 5 Zlaughter Crucifukkxions running around. That would be kind of funny. Since I don't really have a way to end this video, I'm just gonna scream.